and Ron, it's great to see you in person. Thank you for sending over the music. I actually was chomping at the bit. I typically release the music after we talk, but I was so excited to get 60s UFO on there that I played it this week. So
Cool,
I
thanks.
love the album. I love the edge to it, and there's definitely an edge to it. So I'm looking forward to getting into it. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Great, thanks. Thanks for checking it out.
Yeah, you bet. So before we get into the album, we're hitting the 5 year anniversary of the pandemic, and that was so big for all the musicians in the world in general. Ultimately, how have you altered your life as a musician because of the pandemic? Have there been any like waves that have existed because of that time period?
Well, with the first album, it gave me time to write music more than I would have otherwise. And there was kind of a boom, I'd say, post-pandemic too. It's like for gigs, anyways, everybody was booking. As soon as things got going, there was like, okay, no matter what, we want live musicians everywhere. So that was kind of neat. I think that maybe lasted for a couple of years. Now it's kind of quiet down, but yeah, so I think it kind of, in a strange way, created, at least in my universe, kind of a little boom. And yeah, the time thing too, just to be at home so long and to have time to write and compose. The challenge was to kind of do a second album and to find the kind of time to do that with all regular life happening and teaching and this and that. So yeah, that was the challenge.
And that's the thing, this is the second album, and every time you do a debut, it's like your initial real entrance into the world of the genre you're in. The
Right.
jazz world saw you, and
Yeah,
now you're coming in with follow-up, showing your evolution, maybe a different edge to your sound. How
totally.
does this release feel to you? How does it overall feel based on what your vision was going in and what you have in your hands now?
Well, it was kind of the first album we recorded a lot of material. I had 19 tunes. So I was wondering how I'm going to put this out. So we chose like 11 that were more in the same bag, like more swing based. But I had these more, ECM-ish kind of tunes left over. So I kind of decided to re-record some of those. I ended up keeping two of them and writing a whole batch of new tunes in that bag. So yeah, I wanted to do something different. Like on the new album, there's maybe only one tune that could have fit on the first one, style wise. But yeah, I got into this kind of bag of writing tunes, ECM-ish. A lot of stuff was written too in the fall. So, around here it was like the leaves are falling and everything, and it had a vibe. So I got into that ECM vibe that I kind of typically listen to in October and November. It's like
Yeah.
seasonal. And some of the other tunes are more funky, and those were written like more, summerish kind of things. And yeah, I was listening to a lot of early Robin Ford for those, like the first Yellow Jackets album, the kind of playing he had on that. And yeah, so it's just completely different musically, more varied in the styles, and yeah.
Yeah. So there's nine original compositions on here, and in so many albums, there's always these reimagined standards or classics and
Yeah.
those kinds of things. Is that something that's on your radar for successive releases? Are you looking to kind of cover things, or is the original route kind of your vision and who you are?
Yeah, well, I think it helps with that. It helps create like a unique sound when you write your own tunes. Like I remember several people mentioning that, like, it's just easier to find your voice if you're composing the material you're going to be playing over. Like, getting back to like Pat Metheny, I had a lesson with him like 25 years ago, and that's one of the things he was mentioning is that playing standards can be a challenge to sound like really original because it's the standard chord progressions. Of course, many, many people do it and sound great and super original. But if you have your own chord progressions, your own tunes, you've already got like, an edge on that to have an original sound. So yeah, I do enjoy writing the tunes.
And how many people now reimagine all of Pat's material?
Well, that's it.
You know
Now
what I'm
his
saying?
stuff is becoming classics.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. It goes around. So that's pretty neat too. When you look at his catalog and guys like John Schofield, they just, every album they put out, they write 10, 12 tunes. So they've been doing this for 30, 40 years. So they have so many tunes. It's just amazing.
I remember you had a really unique story of running into him and how he gave you a lesson. Um,
Right. Yeah.
Recapitulate that a little bit for me.
Well, it was a contest really back in town for the
Yeah.
jazz festival. So I was a pretty young guy. I was 21. And yeah, I just filled out all these. It was like a draw, but I filled out so many forms that I guess I just got lucky. But he had told me he kind of filtered it out too. And my teacher at the time was one of his former students at Berkeley. And they were the same age. I remember him telling me he went to Berkeley, he was 19, and Pat, here's his teacher who's also 19.
Yeah.
This new guy was there. But anyway, so that gave an edge to that. But yeah, it was really exciting to meet him and spend like 3 4 hours with him. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the real deal right in front of you, like really demonstrating everything that you hear people talk about. He's just playing it like in your face. So it was
That's
like
it. Yeah.
highly motivating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so at the end of the day, views, visions, and destinations, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Well, I think it's when we think of making an album, I really try to get the pacing together. That took forever on this album. And ironically, it really took 3 or 4 months before I was satisfied with it. And I had to take a tune out to make it work, which is a pretty funny thing to do. There's another tune there. For some reason, when I just said, okay, if I don't put that tune on the album, now I can find a way to make it work. So it's the album thing, which I still enjoy, is to having a progression, like watching a movie or whatever, that there's like a narrative through the different tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
What?
and a musical trip in different styles too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Dynamics.
Yeah, no, this album just had a different feel to it. There was a different
Yeah.
edge, and I love that. I love that with musicians that I get familiar with to kind of see the evolution and to just see how the world works on you because it all comes out in your art.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So,
Always changing things, always checking out new stuff. And
yeah.
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 So what are you doing for live shows, promoting? What's going on?
Well, there's a record launch next Sunday, next week. So that's the next thing for the album. And well, at this time of the year, I'm sending out stuff for festivals. So we'll see what bounces back in the next few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure to apologize on behalf of this side of America. I apologize for all of the things that are happening. I definitely just I'm not okay with it. So just so you know. But
It's
I think
beyond anything. Yeah. Most artists and musicians are just like, yeah, well, that's it. Huh? It's like,
well, and I think too the one thing that is gonna whether it's overtly put out there or in the backdrop, I think art is going to be the great unifier of human beings to
oh,
go
yeah,
up against things that are transgressions of like humanity and what we need to do to get along. And I mean, and our countries have always gotten along. There's never been anything that's been strange, but I think that arts always kind of grounds us and makes us feel okay on this planet.
totally. Yeah. I think it's beyond boundaries, beyond politics for sure, beyond anything. It's the universal language. It's a cliche, but I do believe that it's true. Yeah.
The one thing that I heard from musicians, many musicians that I talked to during the pandemic, was this hope and notion of getting to a point where artists will get their due, their pay, their
Right.
the right economics for what they're doing. I think Bandcamp's done that very well. So my
Yes.
question to you is, if anyone wants to pick this album up in the best way other than streaming that will benefit you, or see a live show or anything in your world, how do they do that?
It is Bandcamp. I think I'm always trying to promote Bandcamp because it isn't that well known with most people who just check out Spotify and stuff. And I'm always telling them, well, you can stream on Bandcamp as well. You don't have to download files and deal with them. You just put the app in your phone and it's the same thing. And I was like, but the great thing is you're supporting music
Yeah.
when you're doing it. You're not just like surfing the wave that's already there. So I think it is a great platform. Unfortunately, I don't think it's known as well as it should be. Yeah.
Yeah. I always try to shout it from the mountaintops because I know that for most musicians, other than if they're on an indie label and it comes from the label, it's usually Bandcamp. So I try to steer everybody that way because that is the
Yeah.
best way to benefit
That's
you.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the album was released this morning. Like it just came out on all the platforms. So like my buddy who I work with a lot is, oh, what's going to happen when the album's released? Well, we're going to be at home and not a whole lot. It's
That
just going to go out there. And it's a funny kind of process when you think of it. Back in the day, it's like an album will physically come up. You can go out and get it in the store, but
yeah.
it's a different world.
Yeah, and I ask musicians that a lot. I just had my first book published in late October, and when that box was on my front doorstep, I was like, it was like the valise from Pulp Fiction. I was like, ooh, what's in that?
Yeah. It's so much more exciting to have a physical product. Yeah. I grew up in that era, so record stores and
Yep,
video clubs, going to rent a movie.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm still like, with the streaming thing, I'm like, okay, I have all these albums in front of me, and more often than not, I don't know what to listen to.
Yeah.
Now that everything's there, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just put what I usually listen to. And it's really ironic. You'd think like, wow, I have 3,000 albums I could listen to right now. But I'm like, okay.
I know, it's just one of plenty. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, I guess because you can't browse in a physical kind of way.
Yeah. But it's great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I see all the vinyl back there. So, well, again, the album is wonderful. Views, Visions, and Destinations. Thank you so much for sending it out, for hooking up. It's great to have you back, and I look forward to the third time we get together. So,
yeah,
thank you again, man, I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's always great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, friends. Joe Domino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Domino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedomino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.